Are you stuck with deciding on where to place the main objects on your screen? Today I'm going through a couple of simple yet quite effective tips on getting the strong layout. So without further ado, let's dive in. The first one is the anchor objects. Anchor objects are the heaviest objects on the page, like illustrations, titles, images, and etc. The idea is that anchor objects tend to be attached to one of the corners or visual center of its surrounding space. By the way, the visual center is slightly higher than the geometric center due to humans' perception of gravitational forces. That's why even in the letters, you will see that the vertical lines are usually thicker to compensate that feeling. So the positioning is in the corners or in the visual center, but also it can include the entire sides as well. That will be a more subtle way to utilize the anchor points. So here is the example of placing the title in the corner. It's important to leave some white space to the right of the title. Otherwise, it will start to lose its attachment to the top left corner. So you can use any of these points. Use it in the center. You can also attach smaller text to the larger anchor object. You can also mix them up. Also keep in mind that too many large objects might start to compete with each other, so the size contrast will help to avoid that. Here we are using the entire bottom side of the space. But what if we disregard this principle and place everything randomly? So the problem here is that the titles are almost falling down because the smaller text doesn't hold the weight and the compositions start to get too complex to be scanned easily. Does it mean that everything should be placed in those specific locations? Absolutely not, but it's an easy starting point. So let's experiment with the text placement. In the center, it looks balanced, but also a bit static. So if we start moving to the left, for example, it looks more like a mistake rather than intentional design, because it's not really obvious that it's moved to the left, but it has some slight deviation. So we need to keep moving, and here is more obvious, and there is lots of white space from the left as well. Now it's even more obvious decision, but we start noticing that the right side is too empty. So the easiest way to deal with it is to balance it out with some visuals. This is very basic layout and it might be a bit boring as well, but it's a safe to start from point. Moving even further, we start getting lots of visual tension here. It's hard to work with, but also it can be used as a tool to achieve certain dynamic look. Moving up to the corner, the text fits super easily, and there is still some dynamics to the composition. So let's have a look at some real-world examples. Here in macOS, the bottom part and the top part, they are utilizing the sides, so it's a bit more calm and relaxed way to utilize the side. It doesn't emphasize on the corners. It gives the same attention to all of the elements. The same thing goes here. The bottom part is utilizing the entire side, while the top corners are utilizing the corners only. Here is a masterpiece from Ben Mingo. He is using the visual center for the main anchor object, then utilizing the top corners for secondary elements. But also he adds up the additional interest to the design by using the hidden power line that aligns the text with the images below. So the center is so powerful that the emptiness from the left side doesn't really create the disbalance. It still holds the composition in the center. So here's another example from Benmingo. It doesn't really have to be exactly in the corner. If the object is close to the corner, it already is considered as being attached to that corner. And also, we need to keep in mind that the website isn't limited by its height. So it's going to be scrolled down, and we need to consider how it's going to be looking while it's being scrolled down as well. Here's another example from Green Chameleon. They are just snapping the objects to the corners, and it works quite well. You can notice the way they use the contrast of the sizes as well. That really makes the depth of the composition very dynamic. Here's the example from Norgram Studio. They use the corner for the heaviest object, but it doesn't mean that everything needs to be in the corner. So they make the rest of the layout more complex. It has some grid, it has some inner alignments, but the heaviest object tends to be in the corner. So the second one is module-based layout. Our life is surrounded by rectangles. The screen, the wallet, the house, and the window, everything is based on the rectangular shape, since it's super easy to divide and to combine with other rectangles. So the easiest way to organize the information on the page is a flexible module layout. These modules don't cross each other and form modular counter space as well. If we start crossing and disorganizing the modules, it leads to less modular and more organic shapes and white space, which are much harder to work with and can't be used in the large design system with strict rules. Here is some example I found online. If we analyze the shape and counter space, it's forming very complex shapes that are hard to scan. Let's try to quickly rearrange the layout. The main title goes first, then the icons are forming a very simple list. Now both the content space and counter space are forming very simple modules. Of course, it can be more complex, but this is where you can start from and then accurately start adding more dynamic and interesting look. So that's it for today. Please consider subscribing for more content like this. My name is Tamerlan Aziz, and see you in the next one, inshallah.